I want to turn to something else. You asked for how can we reasonably think that God exists? Let me ask you this question. Scientists who begin to look at the universe ask themselves this question: why does the universe have the rules that it does? Why does the universe operate according to the particular dials and parameters it has? What if those parameters were a little different? And the scientists who look at that said, if you change these parameters even an infinitesimal amount, if the gravitational force were slightly different, or the strong nuclear force, or the electroweak force, we would not have this universe, we would not have life, we would not be here having this debate. Now, what is your explanation for how we live in such a fine-tuned universe? It would seem to suggest a fine-tuner or designer. Darwinism is hopeless here because it's not accounting for the universe, only for transitions among life. So what is your rational theory for why we live in a fine-tuned universe?
Right. Well, there's a good reason why no one comes to me for arguments about physics, so I have to take, but I'm not ducking the question. Just for your notebooks, ladies and gentlemen, there is a book by Professor Victor Stenger on this subject. Dinesh deals with it also in his book, that makes the bold claim that science actually negates the case for the existence of God.
Well, Stenger says the laws of physics come out of nothing. Do you agree with that?
Further than I would have gone, I'm saying I recommend that you read it. A chasm of tautology yawns at the feet of all those who go in for this argument. Richard Dawkins actually said to me once he thought it was the most interesting argument he'd so far heard or encountered in all the debates we've all had with the faithful, and it is, because there's something extraordinary about it. Of course, also appeals to us, because anything that says to us, you know, you might not have been here, but you are, so that must be something majestic, is obviously appealing to us. It's sometimes known as anthropocentric. Look at the consequences. Look at an example just in the suburb of this argument where we happen to live. A tiny solar system on the very, very edge of the known universe, with a sun that is going to flare up in a while into a red dwarf, go out, having boiled us alive, on the only planet in its solar system that can support, or I think ever has supported, anything like life. Of the other planets, most of them are either or all of them, I should say, are either much too hot or much too cold. This is just in life, and that's true also of huge tracts of our own dear planet, which we happen to know, whatever argument we take about it.
Christopher, I'm sorry, you're filibustering me a little bit here. This is cross-examination.
Is poised on a climatic knife edge. So I would say, bear that in mind, and I would add, quite some design, and quite some designer.
Well, you said that...
No, I thought it was my turn to ask a question. Yeah. Well, actually, I will forego my question to you if you'll re-ask your question to me about atheist tyrannies and massacres. And I won't take too much time on it. Otherwise I have to ask it to myself.
I'd be willing to ask you those questions if you let it go in a cross-examination. Otherwise, I ask a question and you take up all the time.
Well, no, that's why I was asking. That's why I was asking you if that condition would seem fair. I mean, I must answer the question which you have asked me in one of your contributions. Shall we leave it for a...
Let me do it this way. How about if I put the ball in your court, you pose the questions to me on this topic, and we can go back and forth?
All right, then.
Okay.
Okay. On this question, then, of atheists and secular dictatorships that I'm only just mentioning, has it ever struck you that the original totalitarian movement of the 20th century, the one that actually invented the term totalitarianism, popularized it, claimed it for itself, the movement of Mussolini, Franco, Salazar, the Ustasha in Croatia, Father Tiso in Slovakia, you'll see where I'm going with this now, was basically only another term for the Catholic right wing. There's nothing secular about fascism. If there had been, the Vatican would not have signed treaties and concordats with all of the movements and governments that fascism created. I don't think I need to waste very much more time on that. There's a big literature on it. The Church keeps on apologizing for this, as for its engagements with similar political movements and governments in Latin America after the Second World War, after the main battle against fascism was over. The German version of this is not the same. It's quite clear that Hitler disliked Christianity, though he never repudiated his Catholicism, praised the church in Mein Kampf, asked for his birthday to be celebrated, which it was every year in every Catholic church in Germany by the order of the Vatican. And
Christopher, my turn?
Wait. Just in view of this, in view of the fact that not one person, according to Paul Johnson, Catholic historian known to you, I think has praised your work, up to 50% of the Waffen-SS were confessing Catholics, none of whom were ever threatened with excommunication for their activities. The only Nazi I know of to be excommunicated by the Roman Catholic Church was Joseph Goebbels. And do you want to know why that was? Do you want to guess? He married a Protestant. Magda Goebbels was a Protestant. The church said, excuse me, we do have our standards.
All right.
This is not secularism, Dinesh, and it's quite false to say. And it's actually, there's an insinuation in it that I reject and resent. It's quite false to say that these are the outcomes of secular politics. Thank you.
When I first came to America,
or rather, wouldn't you say? It's supposed to be a question.
You notice that in his statement, Christopher Hitchens zoomed in on one issue, Hitler and the Nazis, leaving untouched, indeed unmentioned, the scourges of communism. He didn't not only mention, hold on, don't jump in, it's my time. This is the atheist conception of fairness. We hug the public square completely to ourselves and drive all the religions out. Look.
You wanted me to stop.
I need about 2 minutes to answer you.
Okay, fine.
Not only did he not mention Stalin, not only did he not mention Mao, he didn't mention Pol Pot, Ceausescu, Fidel Castro, Kim Jong-il. Now, Richard Dawkins in The God Delusion says, well, there's a big difference. The Christians did what they did in the name of religion, but the atheists aren't committing their crimes in the name of atheism. Now, this is what happens when you let a biology major out of the lab. Because here's a guy who knows nothing of history. I wouldn't accuse you of that, Christopher. But all you have to do is read Marx. All you have to do is familiarize yourself with communism. It was an explicitly atheist ideology that sought to create a new man and a new utopia, liberated from the shackles of traditional religion and traditional morality. It was no accident, as the Marxists said, they always targeted the churches, they always killed the clergymen and the priests and so on. Now, the case about Hitler is very interesting. You should read Richard Evans' multi-volume History of the Third Reich. In the beginning, Hitler thought, I can make some friends among the Lutherans and the Catholics, and so he invented something called positive Christianity, which was basically Nazi Christianity. He praised Christ basically because he said that Christ was the only one alert to the dangers posed by the Jews. But you only have to read the book to realize that Hitler hated Christianity. He hired people around him who were all atheists. Their explicit goal, the moment they got into power, was to destroy the church, which was seen as doing what? Putting a little bit of a moral bridle on the horrible plans of Nazism. So ultimately, it's not the Christians. Christians ultimately are accountable in some ultimate sense, atheists or not. And that's why the atheist regimes killed more people in a week than the Inquisition could kill in 3 centuries. And why? Because of the maxim stated by Dostoevsky and the brothers Karamazov, if God is not, everything is permitted.